Hey, 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 it's time for another Uncle Bob's Cigar Corner, the YouTube video out of the Nut House version. And this last month we had a great session with David Dagley hosting, where David had just come back from a place called Babalu Cigars in Austin, Texas, and he had spent a week rolling cigars from raw tobacco all the way to finished product, and came back to show us exactly how he did that. It was a fantastic episode, and I struggled trying to think of how the heck am I going to duplicate that in the Nut House without the ability or the talent or the tobacco to roll a cigar. So, back in my tech days, I used to reverse engineer a lot of things. Ended up with a pile of screws and nuts, but at least I could find out what got started with it. So I thought, why not reverse engineer a cigar? What could go wrong? So here we are. And the cigar that I've chosen is the same cigar I'm going to light up and smoke today. It's a My Father Toro Gordo Connecticut. It's a nice light cigar. Part of why I wanted to do it with a Connecticut is the wrapper is really delicate and really thin and light on a Connecticut. And while I was at it, I kind of wanted to show how when you light a cigar, it's good to toast the wrapper but not char it, because the charring adds a bitter taste to things. So what I'm going to try to show you, and it really illustrates well on a Connecticut, is if you char a wrapper and it's a Maduro or it's a dark Oscuro wrapper, you're not even going to know it. But on a Connecticut, if you just hardly touch it and char it, it turns really dark and it's really obvious. So what I'm doing here is just getting the edge of that wrapper toasted, not charred, and getting the filler toasted, not charred, and doing my best to avoid touching any of that wrapper down the leaf, which would just take away from the delicate flavor of a Connecticut. So there we go. The worst I've done is just on one edge it burned down a little bit. But if you practice that and you smoke a lot of light Connecticut shades and you see a dark singed area on your wrapper, that's the area that is going to come back with a kind of a bitter taste. So we took the same cigar. I soaked it actually in water, and Nathan can be a witness. By the way, I really want to thank two very special helpmates here on this month's version of Uncle Bob's. One, Nathan Hayes, who put together this video and the apparatus to allow me to use this microphone you see, which gives us much better sound. And two, I really want to thank Scott Duncan for putting together the slide deck and for obtaining the microphone and bringing it on up to us so that we could use it. It's actually Scott's microphone, so thank you, Scott, and thank you, Nathan. And I also want to thank, of course, David Dagley for inspiring us with the rolling. So what we're going to do is unroll a cigar from the end product. In other words, reverse engineer it. I'd like to start out by showing you a little bit about what we're working with. We have on the wrapper leaf typically a stronger Viso or Ligero, thicker wrapper that's easy to work with. It's very rubbery and flexible. But the one thing that really came to light that I didn't see any other way, well, there was two big points. One is on the outside of the cigar, they always use the upper side of the leaf, not the lower side. The lower side looks completely different. It's more of a harsh, less shiny look, less finished look, and that's where the veins pop out. So when you put the top side, you don't see the veins as much. It's more of either a toothy look or a very smooth look, but it's a finished look, and it's the side that's exposed to the sun. The other real weird point, and you're not going to believe this, but I've had probably just in the last 3 months, 6 people come into the Thunderbird at the cigar store, and thank you, Thunderbird, for making this all visible and possible, at the Thunderbird cigar store, and ask me if you can tell if a cigar's rolled to the left or rolled to the right, if the roller is left-handed or right-handed. I had the same question. So we asked Padron, we asked Perdomo, we asked a couple of other manufacturers, and they said absolutely not. Fuente made the same point. When you take a wrapper leaf such as this, you pull the vein out of the middle, and you use the left wrapper leaf for one cigar and the right wrapper leaf for the other cigar. Therefore, the rollers have to be able to roll a left and a right wrapper leaf in either direction, with the result being the wrap's going to go the same way whether it's left or right. So you really can't tell if they're doing it left-handed or right-handed. They're doing it for consistency in the cigar because of the shape of the leaf, not because they happen to be right or left-handed. So those are two interesting facts. So what I did is I took this cigar and I took off the last part, which is the first part we take off when we smoke it, but the last thing that goes on a fully wrapped cigar is the cap. You'll see single caps like in Padrones, double caps, triple caps. This has what looks like a triple cap, but what I took off when I got all the moisture on it real nice was this little round thing. And that round cap, how's that, Nathan? Okay. That little round cap was sitting on top of this cigar and holding it all together. And then underneath it was all this. Which is more the cap, and it's wound around, in this case 3 times, to make a triple cap. Once that's off, and I will try and illustrate it now that it's dried out without tearing it apart. Once this is off, you get down to the wrapper that's wrapped around the entire cigar. And without that cap, it would literally fall apart on you, as this is doing now. So the wrapper leaf goes all the way down the cigar, in this case wrapped in a barber pole direction, counterclockwise. And when it's released, and I'll show you part of this, there's another wrapper leaf that's underneath that's ugly. And that's why if you're looking to really get good looking leaves, you're going to get 30, 40, if you're lucky 50% of the leaves that have good appearance that you can put on the outside. The rest of them you don't want to waste, so you put them underneath to hold the filling together. And you can see this has this light Connecticut shade, and it's very, very thin. It's thinner than paper. And underneath is a binder. That's not the filler. That's rolled as a full long leaf, just like the outer leaf. But that binder, the filler goes in place. You got a good shot of that, Nathan? And when David presented this to us, he actually put the binder around the leaves that were bunched inside, accordion style. And once that binder was in shape, then they meticulously rolled in very, very minute detail the wrapper leaf so that it was beautiful, so that the seams overlapped right, so it looked good, so it didn't have any wrinkles, so it could stretch right, and it would be a presentable cigar. So that's how David rolled his cigars, and I will show you it's going to be a mess, but I'll show you down inside how the fillers work. Like this. Now, sometimes they roll them inside entubado. Sometimes they accordion or bookmark them. Is that easy to see, Nathan? But there's usually at least, in a cigar this size, is at least 5 or 6 leaves in here. You'll notice that every leaf is full length. There's no bits or pieces or chopped up hunks in there. The leaves go the entire length of the cigar this way. And they are combined next to each other. You'll see a light one and a dark one and then a medium one. And they are actually combined next to each other in an attempt to blend and marry those various leaves in such a way that they complement the taste, like you'd be blending a wine or a fine dinner. So that's how, and it was much easier for me to take it apart than it was for for David to build it. But that's how you take these various leaves. Usually the filler leaves are down in the lower end, and the strength in the filler leaves are the stronger further up the plant because they get more energy from the sun, and then the good looking leaves are typically from the top. Another illustration of that, which really shows better than I can show you with that cigar, is why and how the cigar is put together. And a very important part of this is, keep in mind, these filler leaves in the middle are there to burn, to provide combustion. They're not really there for flavor or taste or nuances. The flavor and the taste of the cigar comes from the wrapper and the binder. More so the wrapper than anything else. The binder has to complement it and add to it. And then the filler cigars have to complement in such a way that, for instance, if you had, and this isn't always the case, but if you had a dark Maduro wrapper, you would want filler tobaccos that complement that dark taste and bring it out and make it nicer. If you had a light Connecticut shade like we're smoking today, you would want little lighter, butterier, less dark, less harsh tasting filler tobacco to complement the outer leaves, the binder and the wrapper. So altogether, you've got an experience that's unique and different than any of those leaves put together by themselves. If you look at how a cigar is constructed and you think about it for a minute, you realize if a cigar is very thin, like a Lancero, 38, 34 ring gauge, very thin, there's not a lot of this middle stuff, the filler stuff, to keep the cigar lit. But there's a great deal in the lighting and burning of the cigar that you get flavor from the wrapper and the binder, because the filler, well, it doesn't water it down exactly. You get a lot stronger wrapper taste from just having that outside of the cigar. So when you run into these cigar nerds, cigar geeks, or cigar nutcases, I run into a lot of them. I think I am one. They'll prefer Lanceros because they get that wrapper flavor in its purest form without anything watering it down or changing it or making it different. Now, I'm a big fat cigar smoker too. I like a 70 ring gauge once in a while, and any more than the 60s kind of overwhelming. But I like those cigars not because they're real strong or they're real robust. They're actually milder. When you think about it, there's more of this filler, this stuff that's in there just to burn it, just to make a lot of smoke, just to keep the draw nice and easy, and you get very little opportunity to get the binder and the wrapper to give you something on your taste palate. So when I smoke a wide cigar, I'm looking for something actually milder than when I smoke a Lancero. And you'll see a lot of blenders that blend to the Corona size or the Robusto size, or at the most the Toro size at around a 50 ring gauge. And what they had in mind and what you're experiencing in a lot of times is a lot closer. So all of these variations go into rolling a cigar, as David knows, from picking the specific leaves, and not just picking them, but how you layer them on top of each other and which ones you put next to each other, and then bringing that binder into the mix flavor-wise and also doing its physical job of holding the cigar together, and then trying to figure out what wrapper would enhance what you put in the center of the cigar. Now, do that and repeat 300 times a day without any variation so that everyone tastes the same. Good luck with that. That's the real art and trick of, and my hats go off to the cigar rollers and to David that did all these, because he knows how hard that was to do. He was sitting there with, I believe, 7 Cuban cigar rollers in Austin, Texas, at this Babalu cigar factory, which you can pull up on the internet and see a YouTube of how they actually do instructions and do the rolling. It's really kind of fun. Another aspect of trying to put together a cigar is, well, and this just amplifies what I was saying. The school that David went to lasts the whole week. It's available to other people and fun to go to. One of the things that really amazed me that he got out of it, he didn't get out of the school, but he found this on somewhere on the internet, and he actually owns this cigar mold, and it's an ancient, looks like an antique to me, but he actually pressed the cigars at Thunderbird at our show this month, and showed us how they take shape when you put the pressure on them. You just leave them in the press for like 45 minutes, and then they come out. And that's how we reversed engineered a cigar, and I can't think of anything else that we learned from that, aside that it looked like it was fun, it looked like it was very exacting, but what really amazed me is how much of an art it is. And these rollers, whether they be bunchers who have to put the tobacco together in an exacting fashion, or rollers who have to actually create a work of art 300 times a day, or the process that the blenders go through. And another thing that became obvious is, you think, let's say a master blender's out there and he's smelling tobacco all day, and he's going out in the farms like AJ's Farms or Fuente's Farms or Padron's Farms, and they check their tobacco and they look at all the quality they get and see which one's great, and then they come up with a blend. And then they can walk away and just say, do this a million times the exact same way. But what I really learned from this, and from going down a couple more rabbit holes, is that's not the case. The A.J. Fernandez of the world, the Skip Martins of the world, the Padrones and the Fuentes of the world, they're in the factory every single day verifying, validating, and testing the leaf that came in from the curing barns and the aging rooms, those leaves that came in this morning. It's almost like I've got a cousin that's a cook. He's a really good chef, and he used to cook. He used to work out in Cape Cod, near Boston. Every single day that he cooked food, he started at the fish market in Boston, and he would start his day by picking the fish for the day that he was going to cook and put on the menu that night. Not by planning in advance, and not by knowing all these recipes, although he spent years doing it. But what it all comes down to is, what tobacco did you get for your cigar this morning, and did that blender touch it? Did he smell it? Did he check it out to see if it was what he wanted? He'll actually pick it up and roll just one leaf and smoke a little bit of that leaf to validate that what he's looking for in the blend is happening. And they'll make minute adjustments on the sizes of the cigars, on the blends of the cigars, every day, year after year, to give you the same cigar. So if you get like a, I don't know, an Opus X or a Padron 3000 that you bought in 2014, and it tastes just like the one you bought in 2019, I'm amazed. This is absolutely incredible. I saw a recent video by Padron, which I highly recommend. It's a Padron movie that a man made. It's on YouTube, just called Padron. And they asked Padron, what happens when the weather changes and you have good years and bad years? Does that change the taste of the tobacco? And his response was that if you stay true to the seed that you put in the ground every year, the only thing that changes with the good weather and the bad weather and the earth, and you respect the earth, is the amount of yield. The taste will stay the same year after year if you stay true to it. The yield will go down and you can't make as many cigars on that plot of land. So you'll have a slower year, but you still have what you put out is that tobacco that you intended to put out. When you have a wonderful year, you're able to make twice as many of the same exact cigar, fantastic. It will taste the same. It won't taste any different because the season changed or the weather changed a little bit. That was a real eye-opener to me and surprised me. Oh, and by the way, next month we are going to do what we call Fumas tasting, which I just mentioned a bit ago, is exactly what the blenders do when they figure out what kind of cigar they want. And we're going to take one leaf of a certain blend, let's say it's a Connecticut shade or a Ligero, Maduro, or it could be anything that might go into a certain cigar. And we're going to smoke that one individual leaf. And then we're going to smoke another leaf in that blend and see how it tastes. And we'll smoke 3 or 4 different leaves, and then we'll smoke the finished product and sort of educate our palates as to, gee, each one of those leaves tasted obviously different, but none of them tasted like all of the leaves blended together. So that's the secret of a real good blend. So that's it for this month. I really want to thank Nathan. I want to thank Scott. Thank you, Scott. Hopefully, we're trying to work on the lighting. We're trying to work on the microphones. And we're trying to make this an easier, less of a headache experience for all of our good brothers of the leaf out there to experience. So I hope this is getting a little bit better. We're really enjoying doing it, and we'll see you next month. Thanks a lot. Bye. And please subscribe. Thanks.